Welcome to the podcast that is designed to fuel your success in selling technology solutions. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, VP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, and this is Next Level Biz Tech. Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm here wrapping up the security track. We were on, if you tuned in a couple weeks ago, we started this with Jeff Hathcote, and we got his purview, Telarus Solution Architect, and then we went and we talked to Ben Bowman of Masergy, talked about all the things, the great things that Masergy's doing with SOC and SIM and MDR and all of that. Now we're on with Sean Weisenburger of JIL Communications, the man of the hour. Sean, thanks for coming on, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Josh.
Sean, I like to kick these off with any unique background or any blackmail I can use against you later, however this translates. But I really just want to know, how did you get started? How long have you been in it? Where did you start? And then we'll learn a little bit about JIL.
I'm going to contribute this to my father, actually, because he used to work for a bank doing the ATM network, right? Mm-hmm. And this was like mid-'80s, late 80s. Right. And he always had the coolest toys to bring home. I mean, these things were suitcases, right? Of these computers and everything. And we would sit there and just bang on them and kind of, kick it around. And before I know it, I had a Commodore 64, a Tandy T100, all of the evolutions of those and everything. And I can remember from my eighth grade, like dissertation, final project, right? We were writing programming. Basic, right? No big deal, 10, print, go to 10, that kind of stuff, right? Pretty simple. So I did a kind of a whole program, and this was all pre-done, everything. I just hit play, man, and the whole class was amazed of what we were doing. So it was kind of cool. So that kind of spun my propeller head right there. You get a little older, you kind of get away from it. You're 16, you know what happens, when that happens, right? So there's stories in there we won't go for.
Yeah.
But really, after I was working, I started as a paper boy, went to a lumber yard, was working through there, kind of got my business knowledge from just that retail sales acumen. Next door, there was a computer shop next door, right? And one of the sales managers would go over there and actually on the side build clones, right? Clone computers all day long. And that just fascinated me. This was 94 or 5, like right when Windows 95 was coming out. So, we were all on DOS, and this 95 was like, oh my gosh, GUI, right? It was so cool, everything. So, so I got really interested in that piece of it. And I decided to apply for a position at a local VAR integrator here in Louisville, Kentucky, Entree Computers. And my first real sales job was going out and getting clients to buy networks and printers and all these devices and services, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of where I started from. And then not too long. So during that time, we also stood up a ISP. Okay. So dial in, right. Dial up, BRIs, if you remember that, some real smoking bandwidth at that time, right? Couldn't even run anything on it today. Yeah. But there was a company that came into town called Blue Star. All right. They were a startup. They were a DSL startup. This was kind of the advent of naked DSL and putting all these DSLAMs everywhere. They got a bunch of private equity money and we're building out a network and everything. And it was a very startup entrepreneurial-ish environment. So I just gravitated, loved it, just kind of got, and I was a sales engineer at that point because I've always wanted to be on the sales side, but gravitated to understanding that technology deeper and further and go down with that. So, so that lasted. COVID Communications, not COVID, COVAD.
Yeah, unrelated.
Purchased them and spent a couple of years there. COVAD, bankruptcy, et cetera. Popped off from there to another local integrator who was standing up an MSSP. That didn't even know that word existed back then, right? So we were really taking these sonic walls over multiple clients, putting it into a system and managing all that stuff. So it was
That's revolutionary at that point.
total.
Yeah.
This was '02. This was 2002. And and my nerd side kicked in, and it was like, man, security is so cool, man. It's just like those hackers, how they think and all this. So it really gets my blood going when you talk security. It was a startup, thus, it only lasted 2 years or so. The owner, actually, Joe Sikora, actually went on to be a pretty big director at Fortinet, Bit, what's his name? Bit, whatever. And he's at Proofpoint now. So he's been in security too. Went back to the telecom side. So really got deep into the telecom side because I really knew route switch pretty well. And that's perspective. And lo and behold, we were standing up VoIP networks back in '02, '03, right there. Yeah. Like it was painful, very painful. So again, my telecom teeth have been, a couple of years there, got acquired by, actually it went bankrupt. What's new? That was kind of the .bomb era, right? Went to another company, Synergy KDL Norlight, which is local here. Everybody around Louisville would know that. That got acquired by Windstream. Spent the next 14 years at Windstream with all their acquisitions, kind of putting that together and selling solutions, all that kind of stuff. And kind of got fed up with the big W. No offense. I mean, a great company, just wanted something different, right? To cut it up. So I went to a Telarus competitor, Microcorp, who is now AppSmart, as their first sales engineer. And that's right when SD-WAN was really getting hot, right? That was kind of the buzz term. So I was tasked to go out and figure out SD-WAN for them and all that. So kind of cut my teeth on that and had a lot of travel that involved with that. I'm sure you can relate with that. Kids were young and I was like, dude, this kind of, I want to be at my kids' basketball game. So one of my good partners actually lended a hand off, Charlie Booth, and he brought me on JIL Communications. I've known him for 20 years, sold a lot of his book and his business and everything over the past, all the companies I've been through. But yeah, so I've been kind of on the provider, the master, and the partner side. So I'm very unique in that realm. So that's kind of my technology journey per se.
Love it. And I love how it starts with a computer store next door.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's the way it was. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Great story. So let's start a little bit more about JIL for anybody who's not familiar. How do you guys go to market? What do you do? What's your focuses? All that good stuff.
Traditional telecom agency back in the 1999 is when it was started. That since I have been brought on as a sales engineer, whatever, we have really pivoted towards the more complex offerings, right? That being the cybersecurity, being the contact center, being those high dollar, high touch, highly complex services that you really have to kind of understand at not only a business level, but somewhat of a technical level to navigate a lot of the noise that we all hear as people and get blasted with all these companies. So yeah, that's kind of what we do. So we take the complex and make it uncomplex, right? And we partner with our customers. We're just not a sell it and leave. We're more of a white glove relationship. We want to keep you as, forever. We realize that the direct sales force, no knock on the direct sales force out there, but they tend to come and go. We are a constant, and we don't hide behind how we're paid or anything like that. We're paid to service your book month over month over month, right? So, and if you don't like what you see, then let's have a conversation and change it. So that's kind of JL. We do a lot.
Good. Let's talk about. I think you kind of mentioned it, but tell me. I want to start kind of polar, one end, and then transition to the other end of your first experience with security, and then some good stuff in between, and then a most recent example in security. So is your first real, kind of your deep foray into security with the sonic walls when the MSSP thing didn't exist? Maybe
yes.
Talk to me about how is it being done before that? Right. I mean, you're identifying problems, right? I see the engineer brain. You're
Yep.
figuring out a way to fix it, and kudos to you. You figured out a way. How is it being done before that, and how are everybody's kind of eyes opened after that?
So think about, 100 clients, right, out there, and having to log into 100 clients to update firmware, software, change a configuration because they asked. But that's not, it's not, what am I trying to think? It's not just, it's
It's not
hard, right?
feasible, yeah.
It's not feasible. It's not streamlined either, right? It's a lot of people, a lot of time, a lot of things like that. So the company I work for, Fortress Network Security, they were a pretty big SonicWall partner, and SonicWall actually brought out their global management system that we deployed in more of not just, so you could sell that to an enterprise, but we were focused on kind of the small medium business. So we took that platform and kind of changed it into, hey, we can manage all this for our clients for a monthly fee, right? I mean, applying the patches, the updates, all of that stuff, all the love, care, and feeding that go along with that security. Because remember, back then, this was '02, it was all about hardware, right? It was about that firewall, that layer 3 firewall. I mean, we weren't really protecting web apps and all this kind of stuff with CASB and all that now. But now yeah, that was kind of, and to be honest with you, now that I think about it, there was kind of some lightweight SIM action in there too, some logging. So we can go back and see what happened, with that firewall or what happened at a point in time, right? So it was kind of cool, going back and doing that. So yeah, it was awesome actually.
You had
So
me
that
at
was kind of my first.
you had me at MRR.
Right, exactly.
You knew about you were doing MRR before it was cool.
It was actually, so it was 100% year over year growth. I was only there for 3 years, granted, and that turned into like $10 million in revenue, annual revenue for a small business, a local small business. That's pretty
huge.
good.
No,
Pretty
that's
good.
huge.
Yeah,
Kudos to you.
absolutely. So
All right, so let's talk about, we talk a lot about, partners that haven't sold some of these advanced services. And I want to get the message across about how this transforms your relationship and really evolves your relationship with your customers. So talk to me about, as you've pushed further into these advanced services, like you're talking about with security, what does that do for the relationship? How does that evolve it? How does that improve it? What other doors does it open up? Let me just talk about that for a minute.
So the way we approach everything is a kind of a security first mentality. And here's the reason why. Every piece of what Telarus offers, what technology offers, is surrounded by security. I don't care if it's connectivity, your UCAS phone system, your any of the other, the contact center, the cloud infrastructure services, all of that stuff. When you start with that security mindset, that opens up the conversation because they got to tell you everything. Yeah. They kind of do if they really want to be honest and open with that. Now, that being said, that also brings in the CFO, right? Because the CFO has a vested interest because he's getting these cybersecurity questionnaires, right? They got to fill them out and put their name, CFO, CIO, they have to put their name on the line on that. So, it's really gotten us to partner deeper and wider with every customer. So I want to say, we don't grow as a company 20, 40, 50% a year. We have that steady 5 to 8% growth, right? But a lot of that growth is going back into these customers, figuring out a problem, and going deeper and wider with all these product sets we have now available in the channel. It's incredible. The opportunity is limitless. So.
Yeah. You bring up a good point. There's a financial. I think I stole this from a financial guy, but second money is easier than first money, right? Not having to go cold call, not having to go, door knock, all that good stuff, and being able to go back and do that and probe it. And you're right. I think one of the things that we focus on is trying to figure out how to maximize uplift and Tibber in an account with our partners for the customers. And I think that's, to your point, it depends on where you start that, right? Because either A, they're going to think of you as only that, or B, they're going to realize, whoa, if he knows this, I wonder what
Mm-hmm.
else he knows. If he can help me with my WAF and my DDoS and all of these other things, I wonder if they can help me with my infrastructure and my migration to serverless and all this good stuff for sure.
And that's where you get to become a trusted advisor right there. You know, they're making the phone call to you first because, granted, my resources are free, right? I just want to figure out your problem and your pain and apply a solution, right? So they're not calling the shop down the street that's going to sell them some Cisco stack, right? Because that's all they do. So I think this evolution of VAR, IT consultant, trusted advisor is really getting the lines blurred, which I like because I kind of know all of the different pieces of it.
Yeah.
But it's very very open as far as what we can do on this side of the house. Absolutely.
Yeah, good point. And it is a big, my next question is going to be about challenges in these conversations. But
Mm-hmm.
we were just out with a partner a few days ago and talking about the way that the channel looks right now for cloud and security is dramatically different than the way that the channel looked from an OEM's perspective 5,
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, right? Maybe 10 years ago there was next to none. And now there's so many from an OEM's. It's a matter of, do we have that OEM? How do we procure it? How do they want it managed? It's less about can we get it? It's more about how do you want to buy it? How do you want to pay for it? What
Yep.
level of management do you want on it? To your point. So yeah, there's thankfully we're finally at a spot where there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
OEMs in the channel now.
You are correct. So what are some of the challenges that we have talking about what we do and how we do it and everything is that buyer that is used to that OEM conversation. I want to buy product. It's not about product anymore. All these products are stellar and pretty good at what they do. It's the people and the companies behind that product that deploy. I can't tell you how many companies we have met where they bought a stack of whatever, you know, whether it be a sim that sat on the shelf for 8 months because they couldn't deploy it, whether it be, you know, some EDR piece of it that they just couldn't, it didn't work in their environment because they didn't do the right pre, you know, kind of install and everything on their applications. Oh, they forgot about their cloud resources, right? Oh my gosh, wait, you mean it doesn't work up there in the cloud? Yeah. So that's where we can bring some of our expertise and everything for that. So it is a challenge to get that mindset unfocused from just buying product and more of keep it at the business level discussion initially. I think that's kind of key because at the end of the day, we're all trying to mitigate risk, right? Risk is the key, and each business has a different appetite for how much risk they can tolerate. So that's kind of our approach on that. So,
Golden point. I love the risk. I
mm-hmm.
love the risk angle. I want to dive in. I want to talk a little bit about the challenges for a second here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if we flash back, maybe it doesn't even have to be 10 years ago. If we flash back
No,
5 plus, the idea of telling a customer who is used to running these 75 Cisco ASA 5505s, that they can see them, they can pet them, they
thank
can
you,
wave
hype.
to them every day, of hey, I'm going to introduce this box in your environment that's going to be managed by a third party. You'll get alerting, maybe not, get some co-management out of it. They'd go, yeah, that's great. You sound awesome, but no thanks. Call the next guy. Now we trans to where we're at, add in all the weird economy stuff, the layoffs, the great resignation, just pile it all in.
Yeah. Yes.
What are you seeing out there? We were talking about this a lot from a security perspective, pre-COVID, pre-anything, about how hard security people were to find.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like now that's just been compounded, and that's been a theme that we've talked about, the IT outsourcing. What are you seeing? What trend are you seeing in that direction, regard to, how it's changed over the last few years?
So number one, you know, a lot of this insurance and state regulated policies are mandating that you have a 24/7 SOC SIM, right? And when you put numbers to having to do that in a company that takes 6 to 8 salaried employees with benefits and everything, I mean, the managed service completely knocks that conversation out of the ballpark, right? So, and I'm not going to say that it's 100% managed service everywhere, right? But that piece of it, and as you said, co-management, or at least have some visibility into that SIMSOC so they can react and have a playbook there uh, to help them react. That's where we see the advantageous benefit. Once you land that that service into an environment, the conversation expands from there. What else can you do for me? What else can I take off your plate? Because I don't have dedicated cybersecurity engineers. I've got, a team of six. Two of them are developers. Couple of them are route switch guys. Some of them are break fix, and I don't have 24/7 coverage. So yeah, that is exactly, I think, where this landscape's heading, especially with oh my gosh, we've had so many people jump from company to company to company for 20 grand here to 30 grand here, et cetera. And I'll give you an example right now. We have a company that is looking to deploy a SIM, pretty large company, don't have a SIM yet, but looking to deploy a SIM. They have two engineers that recommended a workload, a SIM that is one of the leading SIMs, but it takes a team of engineers to deploy it, care and feed it, and everything. And we are sitting back waiting for the phone call, going, "Yeah, you failed. I get it. We'll help you. We'll prop you up. We'll get these guys in there that can manage it the right way." And oh, by the way, one of those guys have already left the company, so they're seeing the light. Unfortunately, sometimes, kind of like I was told when I was younger, you got to hit the brick wall first, right?
Yeah.
Before going, oh, yeah, managed services is the way to go. So that's my dissertation on that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, you bring up a great point, and I think when we started down, I mean, from a Teleris perspective, when we started pushing security heavily and helping partners kind of go down that road, trying to get more products into the market, early on, it was the customers saying, "I'm not a target. I'm not a target. I'm not a target.
Right.
I'm small. I'm small." And thankfully now, I think, shouldn't say thankfully, but because of some of the breaches that have happened, people have realized anybody's a target. But more importantly, I think the insurance companies and things like that are really forcing people to look at this and to do things. Even if you do the basics, even if you do the minimum is so much better than most people have done. And I think the other thing that I want to encourage people on, I think we don't, whenever we bring this up, we have good conversations around it, but I don't think we talk about it enough, is the whole imposter syndrome idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think we as people assume that when we're going to talk to these customers, that the customers are absolute experts and they are going to be able to just stump us on every single question. And the reality is, with all of the technology that is getting thrown at these customers, everything that they've got to Google, every brand out there under the sun, what their buddies did, what their boss says they think they should do. I think you and I, we're all just fortunate that we get to see all of the things happening, right? And we get a bunch of data points on the great tool sets that are out there. So we get to lend advice on this. And when we get into these conversations with customers, I find that they just open it up because they go, I mean, it's all but saying I have no idea what I'm doing. There's just, to your point, they either just don't know, they got pushed into a different role, they're doing security part-time, or they're just overloaded with options and they don't know where to go.
So never again, don't be shy. I agree. Do not be shy by asking some of these questions that are pretty basic, because you can't assume that everybody knows. You were exactly right, Josh. That's head on, because the first time you assume, you know what happens there.
Yeah.
And as salespeople, we should all understand that a hard no is okay. It's okay. There's other things in the tool bag we can talk about, right? It's all good.
Yeah. But if we don't ask, we know somebody
That's correct.
will.
You got it. Absolutely.
Let's walk through maybe, is there any verticals that you've focused on from a security? I mean, we're talking about SOC here, right, as the key focus of this, and you've laid out some great points as to why people wouldn't want to do it themselves. We're leveraging the economies of scales of the providers. We're leveraging the tech talent of the providers. But any verticals that you've seen with regard to SOC, this conversation resonates a little more with?
Yes. right now, manufacturing, we're Midwest manufacturing's huge, right? They're still trying to play catch up from the 80s, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They really are. And they've got these pretty sophisticated systems inside their plant, right? That are all now becoming IoT aware. They want the analytics off of it. How do you protect, So they're getting more sophisticated, but they're not, dedicating. A lot of these companies don't have CIOs. They don't have CTOs, right? They have a glorified IT guy, right? So that's where I see a lot of home runs being hit right now, is in that space. The other space I will say is healthcare. Healthcare is getting bombarded, and I don't mean healthcare from a hospital perspective, but a pretty large radiologist, right, or an orthopedic surgeon that has a huge practice, right? Those guys are targets all day long, and they don't have the resources because they're outsourcing stuff already for that. So those two verticals are pretty deep, pretty good conversations with the cybersecurity discussion.
Good. Let's go into a detailed example as we kind of get towards the back half of this podcast. I want to
Mm-hmm.
have you kind of walk us through. There's a couple trends we see when we ask this question. Right? I want to go through an example where you saw a big transformation in a customer's business from a security deployment that you've done, and sometimes we find that things don't always translate to, oh, they said it was this and the reality it was this, or it was something completely different, or we uncovered more. So curious if you can walk us through an example. What did you walk into? What was some of the tech stack that was there, and what did you really find that they needed and ultimately ended up getting?
So yeah, I'll just take one of these manufacturing examples that I have in our book of business. They hired a new CIO, first CIO of this company, because they were growing, and actually COVID actually propelled their growth for a lot of instances. It's a packaging company, right?
Hmm.
They make packaging. So go figure. How many people are on Amazon, right? Over COVID, hey, work over here, and we've got Amazon up over here ordering stuff. So and they were in growth mode, crazy. Okay, so they have a brand new CIO brought in, and he was tasked really to make security not only easy, which is kind of it's hard to make security easy, right? Right now, especially, but also to protect, the crown jewels, which is their customers, right? And their partner's partner, right? So when you have a company that's doing business with one of the big blue chip, big, like I just mentioned their name earlier, Amazon. Yeah, they kind of, you don't want to be the guy left holding the stick going, we got breached, by the way. We got to tell Amazon, right? So it goes down to the reputation piece of it, the legal liability, the insurance, all of it, right? So funny this, and this is how I'll tell you how we got engaged with this customer. They bought a stack from another MSP. Okay. They got ransomware.
Oh.
Yeah, they got ransomware. They called that MSP. The MSP said, you know what? We don't have any incident response. Here's the playbook. You go do it.
That'll go well.
So yeah, no, we were pitching this company for the last 6 to 9 months, right? Trying to get in. So they didn't choose our solution. They chose somebody else's. Well, one of our guys got the phone call like at 9 o'clock at night going, hey, I need some help. I don't know where to go. My tech company says I just don't have anybody to do anything. So lo and behold, we had one of our vendors in their systems within a couple hours, mitigating the risk, trying to do the forensics on all of what happened, and making sure everything was kind of good. So that incident changed that company's entire mindset on security, and now it's a security first approach within their company as a culture, right? And it's like the old backup. It's not if, it's when. it's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen. And as many layers as we put in place, it's good to have those layers, but it's the people, the processes, and the business outcomes that really make a full solution, right? You can't just have the latest and greatest shiny object and expect it to work, right? You've got to have this shiny object that also takes care of this with the people and the culture inside. So yeah, it's a full court press from a security perspective. Yeah.
Love it. Good example. And I think if you're the one fielding that call at their absolute worst,
Right.
you form a trust. Trust to me and relationships are really built down in the trenches. And so how it's not necessarily what you do sometimes, right? Because we make mistakes, but it's about how you respond and how you react and how you grow from those. So obviously your relationship's defined as how you react in that situation and how resourceful you are. And so, yeah, you're the next call on everything else, right? Because you can present value. You can present value in a panic. You could have easily said, yeah, not going to answer that call, 9 o'clock, right? But that's our brand. That's what we do. And this is all built on our relationships.
100%, 100%. And that's why, this isn't a job to me. It's my lifestyle. It really is. I'm that passionate about it. I'm really passionate about this trusted advisor role I'm in. So these guys lean on me, and of course, I ask favors from them too. So it's what I do. Yeah.
All right. Final thoughts here. I would love to hear. We talked about it a little with the idea of imposter syndrome, not being afraid to ask the questions. Any other thoughts that you would add on this? If partners are maybe in an adjacent area, maybe they're in SD-WAN, maybe they're in a little bit of cloud, maybe they're in some contact center, but they just haven't ventured into security. Any advice or any good questions that you've used that you think others you'd recommend for others?
I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to tell you this. Start small. So I'll give a props out because I was looking for a solution for a small real estate agency here locally. They're not going to go out and buy a SIM. They're not going to go out and buy this big, $10,000 a month product. But you have a provider, Transmosis, right, in your portfolio that fits that bill perfectly and kind of offers a very simple full stack security EDR, XDR, whatever you want to call it, with liability insurance and everything else included in a package that's really easy to digest for these small business customers. Start there, cut your teeth, right? Get to know some of the verbiage and some of the vernacular and buzzwords and things out there, and then build upon that. I think that's a good, it's hard because I'm an engineer. We have large companies that will never do managed services, but we can still supplement some other things, their tools and all that. That mid-market is exactly where we focus, which is huge. But again, start small, build your confidence in that arena. And I'm actually, I kind of came prepared. I don't know if we're going to be on video or not, but I have a book here called The Cyber Defense Matrix.
Ooh.
It's a very, very good book and kind of lays out what the CIO is thinking and where they're going as far as a plan. And it maps technologies to business problems inside the organization and who's responsible for that. So it's a really good book. I don't want to say it's like cyber defense for dummies. It goes a little more in depth, but it is actually a very good business / technology platform that I've read, and it's really good. It's really good. So read just consume that information, right? Consume is what I do. Yeah.
Love it. Love a good book plug, especially relates to our world and this space because it's so unique, I think, what we're doing out there. So appreciate that. Looks like a good one. All right, final thoughts then. As we wrap this up, your opinion, you've seen a lot of change in this space. You've seen change in the channel. You've seen change with security and OEMs. If we look out, right, we're thinking about Edge and CASB and SASE and what all that stuff means. Your opinion on, what the next 12 to 24 months look like? Are we just dealing with the staff shortage and we capitalize helping people on that? What's your just thoughts over the next little while?
I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, kind of like what the UCaaS industry has felt, right? I swear there's probably 3,000 different cybersecurity companies out there right now. And I think there's going to be some consolidation in that arena, especially with the private equity money out there that can take these companies and put them together and make something better. That's kind of where I see this cybersecurity piece of it. But also, I'm an honest opinion that not every workload is going to go cloud. So we're going to have this hybrid stack, right? Some on-prem, some in the cloud, some in multiple clouds, some in private clouds, right? And how do you defend that attack surface, right? You've got to have somebody's got to have their eyes on the ball, right? And typically the customers only have a piece of that, right? So you can still use the managed services and things to help augment what they're doing in their effort. So don't ever be shy about offering, even though they have maybe a SOC of 10 people or whatever. Perfect example right now is we have a customer that it's a healthcare customer, and they've got their full stack. They've got a SOC going on. It's a hospital chain. It's huge, right? But their problem is they can't get projects completed because of the staff shortage. So, you've got Resolve Tech in your portfolio that can place individuals, right? It's very profitable. I don't want to call it headhunting, but it's a high-level engineering placement that us as trust advisors can make some money. Or even augment. Don't be scared of professional services either. Those engagements, because typically those lead to the managed services eventually, right? So yeah, that's where I see a lot of this going. A lot of, at least where companies like ours are really hitting home runs out there. But even we'll take the base hits, we'll take the doubles all day long. So yeah.
Great point. Great point too. We've seen that start off with a lot of partners in security. It starts off, we all want the predictable MRR on a lifetime contract that grows at 30% a year and all that good stuff. But the reality is, sometimes if we show some of these skill sets of a 3 to 6 month SOW of this outsourced skill set or whatever, just to help a customer manage an environment that they've already sunk a bunch of money into that they might not want to rip out, but they don't know how to manage it and they need to implement it, maintain it, all that good stuff. Yeah, stick with those. And it certainly, we've seen it exactly do what you're saying of bring back more things that they need after that. All right, good stuff. Sean, I think that wraps us up for today, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate having me. Thanks.
All right, everybody, that wraps us up. Sean Weisenburg, JIL Communications. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Teleris, and this is Next Level Biz Tech.
Next Level Biz Tech has been a production of Teleris Studio 19. Please visit Teleris.com for more information.